And I'm trying something different today, okay? I am actually videotaping, like I did my comments about the school shootings in Connecticut. I'm videotaping this segment of the show. For those of you watching the video that have never seen my podcast before, if you go to the survivalpodcast.com and look up episode 1048, and I'll put a link in the video notes right down below the video screen here of where you can find this exact episode. You can see the whole episode today. But what we're going to talk about now, and I'm going to try to do this more. Unfortunately, today, with all the snow that went on home, I took all the video equipment home over the break. And when I came back to the office today, I forgot that I didn't have my tripod, my mounts, and everything. So I've got my iPhone propped up on a box on the edge of my desk. So we'll see how this comes out. But I'm going to try to do this more. I think this is a good idea to start reaching more of an audience on YouTube, but just taking show segments and putting out, 10-minute segments. So let's get on with the firearms legislation proposed by Dianne Feinstein. This is a huge risk. This is a massive, massive risk to us, but not for what you think. It's exactly like all the stuff I just talked about with the debt ceiling and with the fiscal cliff that wasn't and all the other lies and something called cover fire. So let's look at what we've got here. The Feinstein legislation may be the most onerous gun control legislation ever proposed in our Congress by anybody ever. I mean, it is bad. It is basically making any weapon that can ever hold a magazine capable of holding more than 10 rounds classified as an assault weapon, or let's say even a higher level. It would be classified the same way a machine gun is today. You need a Class 2 stamp or Class 3 stamp to have it, $200 registration fee, register the weapon, that type of thing. That's Glock handguns, right? Can a Glock and it's not, you can keep your Glock, but you can only have a 10-round magazine. It's much worse than that. It's like that Glock has no more. You can't make those and sell those to civilians. Glock would have to come up with a handgun that specifically can't take a magazine with more than 10 rounds and can't be made to take a magazine with more than 10 rounds, which is very difficult. I guess you'd have to make it so that the magazine channel was so narrow that you could only single stack and then make the receiving portion, and you could still build a magazine. So, I mean, this could ban everything. This would make over 120 firearms banned by name, including the AK-47 and the AR-15 and a ton of other guns like that. It would prohibit manufacturers from coming up with new guns to get around the spirit, and it's awful. It would basically require every gun out there that isn't either a lever action or a revolver or a pump action shotgun or any kind of shotgun without an extended magazine. Anything other than that would have to be registered. And to be sold from one person to another, it may not even be possible, or if it was, it'd be the same procedure for doing that with a machine gun today. And all manufacture of those things would cease to the public. You know what chance this has of passing, even the Senate, if it was done the day after the Connecticut shootings, which they're using to tout this? Zero. None. No chance at all. Who is Dianne Feinstein? Probably one of the most hated members of the liberal left. From California, the bastion of let's get rid of guns and all things that are even perceived to be moderately right-wing, and let's tax everybody into infinity, let's bankrupt our... I mean, this is the worst legislation ever. Sorry about shaking the camera there. Worst legislation ever from one of the biggest villains that we could ever have, and it has no chance of passing. Why would you do that? Let's talk about what we're doing in the pro-gun community first. Imagine you're a big trout, big old rainbow trout sitting in a stream, and you see this big juicy night crawler just floating down the stream towards you. Big orange collar on it, just a beautiful night crawler, and you're hungry. You had a few mayflies, but man, this is a steak. But the fisherman's an idiot. The fisherman has a great big huge hook, like something you'd use for a much larger fish, stuck in that worm. And it's not just a fish hook, it's like a brass fish hook. You can see it coming. It's got a big old bell sinker painted pink hanging on the line. And the line is going to be a nice thin line for a trout. It's a big thick line like you use for a tuna. I mean, it looks like kite string, right? And you can see it's red. And you can see it looks like a picture in a book of how to rig up a fishing line. And it's floating towards you. Well, the trout's not going to bite that, right? You got to be careful and finesse fish a trout, but we don't behave like a trout. We're going to take that thing hook, line, and sinker. You can see the hook in it. You just dunk it, boom, and you're going to eat it like an idiot. That's why everybody's flipping out. That's why there's 100 videos about how terrible this is. That's why everybody's a buzzing. Oh my God, they're going to come for our guns. Why would they do this? And if you don't understand why they would do this, then you don't realize how bad this really is. You're about to get the same pantomime bullcrap that you did with the freaking fiscal cliff. I'm going to give you one more analogy and then I'll give you the end game. Imagine that you are a military unit. Now, off in the distance, there is a ridge. That ridge is heavily fortified with enemy soldiers. You're on another ridge, but you can't really see the enemy and they can't really see you, but you both know where each other is. To get the enemy off of that hill, you've got to send some of your troops through the valley in between the two ridges to get them around the side of their hill and flank. You have to do that. Now, when they go out and do that, they're going to be vulnerable. So they're not going to want to go. You're going to be like, okay, you 12 guys run through that valley and go up the side. They're like, Sarge, you know what? We're going to die if we do that. And what do you do as a good sergeant? Don't worry, man. We'll lay down cover fire. And you have everybody come to stand to on that ridge. You figure out where the enemy probably is, and you just unleash hell. You unleash the machine guns, the grenade launchers, mortar fire. You just pound the hell out of that ridge. How many enemy do you think you're going to take out when you do that? 1 or 2 if you're lucky. You're not trying to actually take the ridge now. You're trying to make the enemy think you're trying to take the ridge, but the big thing you're trying to do is occupy them so your guys can sneak through and get the flank. And maybe you sneak through on 2 sides of the flank, and then you execute a pincher maneuver at the end, and you take out the enemy, but you had to lay the cover fire down to get the people that would cooperate with you in a different way other than a frontal assault on board and protect them long enough to get them there. This is the Feinstein legislation, folks. They're going to talk about this thing like it's got a real chance of passing, even though it doesn't. They're going to say that this is the most onerous thing in the world, we got to fight it. The NRA is going to send you things and say, send us money, we need to fight this. And what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, we can't have this is too much. But we all agree that we have to do something. We have to do something. That's cover fire for your rhino Republicans that are open to fairly strict gun control, but not anywhere near this strict. And it's cover fire for your rural district Democrats that have always said they're for the Second Amendment, but not really, and they have a few artsy-fartsy types they have to appease to maintain control of their district. They need cover fire. They need you to believe that they had to compromise on something. So they bring this pig in that's so terrible that anything you put next to it won't be so bad. So what do I think that they'll try to do? I think they absolutely will try to ban high-capacity magazines again, simply by saying that any magazine over 10 rounds will be just like the assault weapons ban of the past. So they'll say, you know, if it says made for military law enforcement use only on it, you can't have it, you can't make them that way anymore, and I don't want that done, and they'll probably get it done, because it sounds reasonable to the... You understand who they're trying to move here. You got your hardcore left and your hardcore right on this issue. And I don't even like calling them left and right. You got pro and anti-gun. The pro-gun crowd is very educated. They know weapons, they know firearms, they know the truth, and they know a lie. And they know all the lies that the left is throwing out. The hardcore anti-gunners, all right? These people are idiots about guns. They don't know anything about guns except guns scare them. Half of what they're telling is not a lie, because you have to know you're lying for it to be a lie. It's just false. In the middle, you have the group of people you're competing for to pull to one side or another for support, popular support on a vote. There is a group of that people that's a slight majority that slides over to the pro-gun side right now. That's what's kept us out of this mess for so long. They intrinsically understand that guns are meant for defense. But they are not educated. There are people like a guy that used to work for me named Brad. I remember talking to him one day about the assault weapons ban when it was about to expire. And he was like, well, I got to believe there's something more powerful. I'm like, no. I can go out and buy a Remington 7400 right now with a 3006 that's semi-automatic and has more power than an AR or an AK. Right? And he just couldn't get his head around. Well, then why would they ban that? These uneducated people that are your brothers, your sisters, that meanwhile, that by and large support you, the other side's trying to court them with what they're going to call reasonable. Reasonable is going to be magazines, okay, And it's going to probably be some sort of, well, let's classify certain weapons that are highly high capacity, high rate of fire, military-like, is a middle class. It won't be a machine gun, class 3. It will be something like they'll come up with a name. They won't even use assault weapons because they learned their lesson. Or maybe they will because it's scary, but they'll come up with this class and say, all you have to do if you want to be able to own these weapons is get a permit from the federal government. And if you already have them, you can register the ones you have, and you can keep them. And if you want to be able to buy more, it'll be something like that. It'll be something like Connecticut already had and didn't do any good. And I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but I'm telling you right now, what's coming down the pike, very, very soon, is going to be a counter-proposal of reasonable gun control. That's the real fight. Don't you forget it, and don't you fall for it. That wraps up the video portion. Again, if you want to see the rest of this, cruise on over to the survivalpodcast.com, and we got a lot of other great topics to talk about today.